Can you give us a little introduction to yourself?
I'm a builder who's just really obsessed about unlocking opportunity for people.
To me, this doesn't sound traditional.
There is that gap between what the business is trying to do and what the engineers want to do.
Yeah. This project, in terms of what crypto can access and the value that it can provide, has to be one of the top projects actually doing something different.
Every single student that we're now onboarding is going to be a part of that growth story. We're talking 7 to 10% growth over the next 10 years.
If you guys get this right, I think it completely changes the perception.
It was just a feeling that I had that this was something that I had to do.
The family already asking you, look, why don't you go back to law? We spent a lot of money here. You then start to find your way in coding. Then you end up at a crypto firm. How was the reaction?
The crazy thing is they didn't even know what crypto was at the time. There was one very big missing part to crypto that I really wanted to chase, and that was the
GM, everybody. Got a brand new guest with me today, but I say brand new. We spent a bunch of time on shows together. This is Jonah from Open Campus. Jonah, I think the reason I'm most excited about doing this show is actually because I get to know a bit more about you. As we talk about Open Campus, we talk about the current initiatives and all of that. And for the audience, we'll get into that. If you've got no context, do not worry. But we've had a lot of time talking about this. So I'm super excited to maybe go back a couple of steps and hear about you, your origin stories, and then we'll definitely get into the Open Campus story as well. For people who don't know who you are or don't know who Open Campus is, can you give us a little introduction to yourself first?
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, thanks for having me.
I'm so excited for this.
It's really great to finally meet in person,
Yeah.
And to be able to do this, not on Zoom, but
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's not a screen there. I'm not AI. Oh, I'm really, really good
He's
AI.
real.
Yeah.
Well, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Jonah. I head up the Open Campus project out of Animoca brands. So Open Campus is the world's first blockchain for education, and what we're trying to build is an education operating system, right? Where we're essentially turning the world's academic credentials into tokenized assets that unlock benefits for students around the world, right? So the idea really is to reward the best students around the world and to help them improve their life outcomes. Now, I guess a little bit about myself. I am really I think if you were to kind of meet me for the first time, the way I'd introduce myself would be, I'm a builder who's just really obsessed about unlocking opportunity for people, unlocking value, right? It's just, how do I become useful to people? How do I build things that become useful to people? And that's been something that's driven me really throughout my career. And I think in a large part, that mindset has really been what's given all these opportunities to me throughout my life and my career. And I think I really have that to really thank for all the amazing opportunities that I've been able to embark on and all the amazing products and people that I've been able to meet. It's really down to that one simple mindset, right? How can I be useful? How can I build things that add value?
I think for me, the show today should be for a crypto curious audience, and you're definitely doing that right now. I'm almost personally trying to stop myself going too far into the crypto weeds with this because I know so much about Open Campus. But even for the crypto curious, I think it's important to note that this project, in terms of what crypto can access and the value that it can provide, has to be one of the top projects actually doing something different in a way that really provides value for the planet. Especially, the areas that you're working in, and we'll get into that. But yeah, I think this is a real problem that needs solving. It needs solving globally in one way or another. The slight differences, but not really education. I think wherever we say issues in education, nobody around the world is saying right now, what do you mean our education's perfect? I don't think that's a thing that people are thinking. And if there is, guys, hit us up because we can probably learn from you. But the idea that blockchain and crypto help support this, if you guys get this right, I think it completely changes the perception of not just education and what it should be, but crypto as well. I think that's a really important story to get into. But before we do that, I didn't know this about you until we did a dinner a couple of days ago. And one of your friends sort of dropped you in it. No, it's not terrible. Depends who sees this. But you used to be a lawyer. Tell me about that. Tell me about how you got into law, and then how on earth you ended up here.
Yeah, so we're gonna do the origin story here.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Love it. Yeah, so I got into law really how every other lawyer does. Probably through some kind of family influence, and me being a good Chinese kid, really wanted to do my parents proud, and I decided to follow in my uncle's footsteps. They come from a kind of very rich family history of everyone kind of growing up and becoming lawyers with the aspiration to also kind of succeed as lawyers, and I think that path had been laid out for me. Long before I was even born.
Nice.
And so in a way, it was almost like preordained that I would become a lawyer at some point in my career. And I went ahead, I got my law degree, I paid my dues, and really there was just one really moment where I just all of a sudden one day woke up and realized that really wasn't what I wanted to do anymore. And that was when I embarked on really finding what my true passion was. And that was kind of what led me into building, right? And creating products that would change the world. And my biggest realization there was that over time, like as I was kind of, working with clients and giving legal advice, and obviously these were all very rewarding things to do. And I also got paid a lot to do it. But what I realized gradually was that lawyers were simply kind of documenting reality, right?
Okay.
Whereas builders are creating a new reality. That difference really kind of bothered me for quite a while. And I mean, I just kind of let it simmer for the longest time. And I do remember it culminating in one moment when I saw an ad on Facebook. At the time, it was like late at night. I was kind of cranking through legal documents. I was actually preparing for an IPO filing the next day.
Nice.
And I saw the ad. It was from a company called Startup Weekend, right? They don't even do Startup Weekends anymore. But this was right in, I think, around 07, 08.
Okay. So, financial crisis time.
Shortly after the financial crisis. So it was probably around 2010, around that time.
Yeah.
And this was when Web 2 was really kind of kicking off, right? This was after the dot-com bubble.
Yes.
And we were getting that resurgence in tech startups, and Uber, Groupon, these companies were all coming up at the time. Facebook was really kind of getting into it at the time.
Yeah.
And that was when I really wanted to I just wanted to go to this event and see what it was about. And the energy at this startup weekend was just infectious. Like the goal there was to build a startup in one weekend. And I had the most terrible idea at the time that I pitched. I don't even want to repeat it anymore.
No, I would not be doing my job if I do not get this out of you.
It's okay. So the idea. Okay, I'll spill the beans.
Let's go.
The idea, I still remember the name. The name of my startup was Promise Fit, right? So promise and then fit. And the idea was to get people to form habits, right, that were healthy.
Yeah.
And so actually, in a way, this idea is actually very degen and Web3 friendly, if now that I think about it. The idea was to actually get people to pledge that they would do a certain amount of exercise, head to the gym X number of days a week, and they would have to publish that pledge to their friends.
Yes.
That would get shared all over Facebook, and you would have to nominate your close social circle to actually keep you accountable. Now, before you started the pledge, you would have to pick 2 charities of your choice.
Right.
One charity of your choice which you support, which aligns with your values, and the other one the opposite, right? And and if you didn't follow on your pledge, if you didn't follow through, the money that you pledge at the beginning of every week gets donated to, your counter charity, if you will.
Wow.
And I think at the time the idea was cool, but and I had a lot of people coming to support the idea actually at the event.
Yeah.
But as we sat there throughout that weekend, the thing that really dawned on me was, how the heck am I going to monetize this? There is no business model here.
Yeah.
And obviously, we never turned that into a real company, and I'm glad we didn't.
Yeah.
But that whole kind of weekend really set me on the path, right? And that was kind of what changed my perception of who I really was and who I wanted to be. Instead of kind of helping someone build their dream as a lawyer and to help document their reality, I really wanted to create my own reality, and that was my kind of journey into tech, and I'm glad I did it. It was really the best decision I made in my life. And yeah, I mean, that was kind of then what led me to really quit my job as a lawyer.
Yeah.
I took a 90% pay cut at the time.
Wow.
Yeah, and my parents thought I was crazy.
I bet. I was just about to ask about that. Yeah, how did the family react? Especially because, is this literally lawyer to open campus and crypto, or is
This was lawyer to no job.
just to, I'm going to start a business?
I'm going to go become a developer.
Okay.
I'm going to go learn how to code.
Okay, and this is 2010, 11-ish, so coding still, like, yeah, as you say, it's a 90% pay cut from a lawyer, not as it is today.
That's correct, especially out here in Asia at the time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like developers were getting paid probably roughly $1,500 US a month at the time.
Okay. Yeah, so they thought you were crazy.
They thought I was crazy. They said, look, are you really sure you want to do this? Because we paid a lot of money for your law degree.
Yeah. Okay, so there was that pressure, a little guilt.
But that was kind of what really set me into the tech career, and there was also no plan B at the time. I mean, I think secretly in the back of my head, I thought I could always go back and become a lawyer.
Yeah.
That was what I told everyone else, just to make them feel a little bit better.
Yeah.
But really deep down inside, there was no plan B. It was just all or nothing. I was all into tech, and call it naivety at the time, call it, youthful exuberance, whatever it was.
Yeah, how old were you during this time?
I was 26 at the time.
Yeah, that's I don't know if we need a term for this, because every time I speak to people now, I've had a lot of conversations with people who make these huge pivots, and that age range, it's like a quarter life. I don't know if crisis is the word. It's almost the opposite, right? It's just like, oh, I know who I am now. Like, I'm actually an adult, or I actually just, know what I want. I think before that, I think I've heard a lot of similar stories where it's like my parents have, sort of put this line. In the UK, it's not so much like law or doctor anymore, but it is definitely, you have to go study. So then you have to figure out what to study, and then you come out with all of this debt. And I know more people than not who, whatever they initially went in to study for, they don't do anything related to that anymore. So that's fascinating to hear. Tell me, like, you're a lawyer. How do you get to development and coding? Like, how do you even go and learn that stuff? Is restudy, like go back into university, college, or?
Yeah, I think, like, while we're on the origin story, I've always had a fascination for computers and technology, and like building websites and putting together HTML pages and styling it. That was always kind of a passion of mine, even from a very, very young age. Back when we were still on kind of MS-DOS, and I don't know if were you?
Yeah, we're similar ages.
Yeah. Okay. And so the era of the floppy disk. And,
yes.
When I was 6, I was probably a little bit older. I was probably around 8 or 10. That was when I started playing StarCraft.
Yeah.
and Warcraft.
Yeah.
And
You might be a bit younger than me. Yeah. Yeah.
you're nodding. So
I definitely know the games.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I had a StarCraft clan, so I was a member of a clan. And I really wanted to, again, like I really wanted to be useful. I really wanted to add value. And the clan needed a page the place to hang out. They needed a page to post their clan news, right? And so I, with a little bit of experience with GeoCities at the time,
Yeah.
I volunteered to put the page together. And that was actually my first foray into technology.
Nice.
Figuring out how to host a page, how to style it. So I think I kind of deep down inside, there was always this like little kernel inside that had a passion for building websites and making digital things.
Yeah.
And I kind of carried that through into, I think, adulthood. And I kind of like, I think, reignited that a little bit with this career switch. So what I actually had to do to really, I guess, make it was I flew all the way to New York.
Okay.
And I took a coding boot camp there.
Okay. Yeah, that's fairly standard now, like coding boot camps. But yeah, I didn't realize that was still, well, I guess it's not standard if you're flying all the way to New York to do it. And was that from here, or was that, where did you fly from?
From Hong Kong.
Yeah, from Hong Kong. Wow. Okay. Tell me about that a little bit. So you got there, the boot camp. Did you still have like that aptitude? Because it sounds like you followed nostalgia a little bit, you know, like you had that knowledge, you did something before, it gave you that like dopamine hit, like I'm useful to my friends here, this is like a narrative that I keep seeing you come back to. But then was that what carried you through that course, or did you find you actually naturally had an aptitude for this stuff as well?
Not at all.
No. Yeah. Because coding's complex, dude, and it's daunting, I think, for a lot of people. It's like learning a new language, and I guess for someone in English speaking, like that's really scary, because we're like, wherever we go, we'll find someone who speaks English. But yeah, tell me about that experience then. So you got to coding camp. What's next?
So I sit down. I remember really distinctly going through the first couple of weeks of seminars and, you know, like live coding classes. And man, it was rough. I thought I had it. I'd been on this website called Code Academy.
Yes. Yeah.
For a couple of months now prior to that, thinking all I needed to do was do this, and all I needed to do was complete all these exercises, and you know, I'd be gold, right? I'd be golden. I'd just cruise right through it. Oh no, not at all. This was the time when vibe coding wasn't a thing. You couldn't just ask AI to help you, and like the simplest problems would take me hours, right? And these were times when actually web development paradigms weren't very well established either.
Yeah.
Right. So I mean, software engineering, obviously systems engineering had been around for a while at that point, but when I became a coder, like that, this was a time when the frameworks to use, the libraries to use, and kind of overall web development patterns weren't very well defined at that time. So there were some unknowns there as well. And what that really taught me, I think, through a lot of trial and error and really bashing my head against the wall, countless nights of just staring at a screen, staring at one error message, trying to figure out what was going on, was really the concept of convergent and divergent thinking.
Yeah.
Right. And I didn't really knew that there was a label for it at the time, but sitting there and having to crank through all these problems was when I really, for the first time, internalized that there really isn't just one way to solve a problem.
Yeah.
There are many multiple ways to solve it as long as you achieve the outcome, right? And then you can go back and kind of optimize. And I think as a lawyer, you're kind of really taught that there's best practices, right? You should do this, this, and this. There's usually one right answer that you tell your client.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you get sued, right? For a professional malpractice. In programming, in building, that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
You don't get sued if you put the wrong line of code in, as long as the user doesn't get screwed.
Yeah.
And that's rare, right? So I think that was really a very big realization for me that I think I've carried through into the rest of my career as well.
Yeah, just like not being as afraid to make mistakes because you just know there'll be a way back through.
Exactly.
That's how you're going to learn, right? Like, yeah, which is already making me piece together some of the stuff you're doing now and like why you're doing what you do now. Give me the fast forwarded track then. So Code Academy in New York, what businesses, what life is along the way that gets you to Open Campus and where you are today?
I have to admit, like after coding bootcamp, I was in a maze for a little bit. I was really trying to find who I was within tech and really trying to kind of, I think, crystallize my role and gain that clarity.
Yeah.
And so I tried different odd jobs here and there. I worked for South China Morning Post, which was which is the largest English language newspaper in Hong Kong, right? So I built out a couple of CMS systems for the newspaper.
CMS systems,
content management systems.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So WordPress is the most famous one.
Yes, yeah.
We wanted to build a custom one, obviously, because we're special. And then I also worked for a food delivery startup, and it wasn't Deliveroo or Uber Eats. It was actually the back end to Deliveroo.
No way.
Yeah. So at the time, food delivery companies were springing up in all cities around the world. They hadn't come to Hong Kong yet, and what our founder had had a vision at the time was, hey, I have all of these drivers. Why don't I turn that into an API that Deliveroo or Foodpanda or Uber Eats, whoever decides to come, can plug into it so that they can bootstrap their business on the ground very quickly. And that was actually a pretty magical time because lo and behold, all these food delivery companies started, setting up shop in Hong Kong, and there was no one for them to call but us at the time. So
nice.
I learned a lot about building real-time systems during this time. And I think like throughout this entire time, I had this nagging feeling, right, that I wasn't the best engineer in the room. I wasn't the smartest. I wasn't the one that could create all these like really cracked algorithms.
Okay.
But I was proficient. I could do the job and I could speak the language, right? And most importantly, what I realized about myself throughout this process was I could speak the language of every single person in the room, not just the engineers.
Yes.
All right. And
that's a big deal. That's a very big deal. I have a similar history, being able to speak human to coders, speak code to coders, and speak human about what the coders have just spoken to other people.
See, you could have been a great PM, actually.
Oh, absolutely not. I sucked at it. That's why I left. That's why I'm here. I just talk too much.
Yeah.
That's why they got me in the first place. They were just like, the coders seem to like you. It's like, yeah, because I like them. Like everyone else is like scared of these guys. And it's just like, oh, they're the nerds, or they're the, there's like a mistrust about how long things take and all of this. And I would be able to actually say, no, this is, so I was doing the role before I was doing the role, but this is not about me. So back over to you.
I love it. I love it. So yeah, we're kindred spirits in that sense. But yeah, I think that was really kind of what gave me the clarity, having been put in that environment, and then actually realizing that in most teams, especially smaller teams, startups usually, that there is that gap between what the business is trying to do and what the engineers want to do.
Yes. And
I think I was just right place, right time, and somehow at the right experience to kind of bridge that gap. And I think that's what kind of then really helped me shape the next phase of my career. That was when I decided I actually think I'm more useful. Again, going back to that narrative, right? I'm actually more useful as someone who's probably sitting between the business and the technical folks. And that was what brought me to crypto.com.
Right. Okay. I have to ask you before we get into crypto.com, the family, already asking you, look, why don't you go back to law? We spent a lot of money here. You then start to find your way in coding. Then you end up at a crypto firm. How was that? How was the reaction? Were they supportive at that point, or were they like starting to really get worried that they've lost their Jonah? Like he's gone to the dark crypto side now. Like he's never coming back to law.
The crazy thing is they didn't even know what crypto was at the time.
Okay, so there was no negative there was just no sentiment whatsoever.
They were just, I don't know what this is.
Yes.
I don't even know what you're doing anymore.
Yes.
Was the reaction. And so I think it was probably just a sense of just, I guess, unknown. They didn't know what I was getting into, but I seemed to be doing okay. I seemed to be making a living. I seemed to be enjoying myself and making new friends. And I seemed to, and I mean, I was, I guess, like, at least on paper, getting promoted, right?
Yeah.
So, hey, like, you're up and to the right.
Good.
Let's see where this thing goes.
Is this so? Forgive me for the ignorance here, because to me this doesn't sound traditional from an Asian family. Like usually, the stories you hear in like the Western world is that they dictate. There's no ask, and where like there's a strong sense of you're going to follow the path of your parents have set out for you. Are your parents a little bit more lax than some families in that regard? They sound way more supportive than sometimes at least the stories that you hear.
I think I had to really push for it.
Okay.
I had to really back myself, and I think it's more the energy that you put into a certain decision.
Right.
Right. And I think really that was the main difference between, I guess, me and some of my siblings. Right. I really put a lot of conviction into my decisions. And I guess it was just a feeling that I had that this was something that I had to do to get into tech, to then get into crypto, which I really saw as kind of an evolution of money. And I guess you could say that at the time, because it was actually, information wasn't actually that widely accessible at the time. So points of view, different opinions about things also were not that easy to get access to. And so I think, I mean, especially now with AI, and you're essentially asking AI to tell you what to think sometimes, right? I think we had that luxury at the time of, hey, you actually need to go and form your own opinions about something. And really put in the work and kind of develop that conviction. And I think that was what really helped me get over the hump with, my family and their concerns. And when you go into something with such conviction,
it's no longer a question.
It's no longer a question. It's a foregone conclusion by that point. I'm doing
Jonah's
this.
doing this. Yeah. Okay. That's fascinating. And again, the reason I ask these questions is because there's, I think there will be an audience to this who are probably in a really similar spot right now. Their family have dictated, or even maybe just social norms have dictated that they've gone to college. They are now out of college, not liking what they're doing, or just uncertain about their future. AI is everywhere, so now that uncertainty, I think, has never been stronger. And I think, trying to step out of that uncertainty into something that you're passionate about, or that just fills your cup in a way where, for you, it was being able to help other people. It was not sort of watching, but doing. Like, I think that's a really good place for people to start. Just find out. You don't need to know the career. You just need to know what fills your cup, or like fulfills you, and then reverse engineer that. Like, okay, so what roles does that do? And then if you get to a point where you have that conviction, just go ahead and do it.
Absolutely.
Like, I'm in one of the weirdest jobs that, it's maybe the new coding, like 10, 15 years ago, no one was doing it. Now everyone's a creator, everyone's, doing this stuff. But that explanation, even 5 years ago, especially because I'm older. So it's like, no, leave that for the kids, leave that for the Kicks and the Twitches and the streamers you've aged past that, Jack. And yeah, same thing. I was like, no, I'm getting to have some very, very cool conversations with people who are at the cutting edge of this stuff. But
but I think
no
like
answer.
cutting edge and technology, that's just, that's the vessel.
Yes.
If you strip all of this stuff back,
Yeah.
right, peel it back, you have to think about it from first principles. And first principles are not universal in this case, actually, because what drives you may not necessarily drive me. But I think what a lot of, I think, younger, people that I work with that might have just been kind of starting out their careers, right? What people don't do enough of is to put in that work and actually kind of peel your own onion back, right? To kind of really discover what that is. And it has to almost get to a point where it's so generic, it's so abstracted that it's really the essence of who you are and what drives you. And for me, that super abstracted essence, right, is how do I be useful? How do I add value, right? Yeah. And there are so many derivatives of things that can come from that really simple thought, right? You could go into coding, you could go into building bridges if you wanted, right? You could become a jeweler, you could design things, right? And the possibilities then become so much more endless. Again, going back to that divergent versus convergent thinking. So yeah, I think you're absolutely right on that one.
Yeah, for me, I didn't do the onion, peeling back. I just noticed one day I was really unhappy in a role where I used to be really happy, and it turned out I was driven a little bit like you, trying to show value and provide value. I felt I was still doing that, but I was starting to get a sense that the people around me, not the people I was working with and directly under me, they loved me. But there was huge shifts in the company, and all of a sudden a lot of questions were being asked about, can't they be quicker? Why do we have to hire more people? All of these things were coming in, and all these judgments were coming in. And I think for me, that was the moment where I was like, oh, I've got no energy for this role anymore. And that's what, at the time, I was on, it's native to X or Twitter, but I was on Spaces, and I'd be doing 5 or 6 hours of Spaces a day for free, just talking on these shows and having conversations about crypto and all of these things that I was interested in. And I was finding that 6 hours into the late evening was like re-energizing me.
That's awesome.
Yeah, after 8 hours of just completely, like, in my most awake hours, my most energized hours, being completely drained. And I was like, oh, there's something here. I'm gonna have to try and pursue this. And I didn't know what I was gonna get into. It was actually a friend I met at an IRL event was like, yeah, have you ever thought about being on the other side of the mic? And I was like, why not? And a couple of months later, I was 20 interviews a week. I think we're talking about 1,500 interviews in at this point.
What a ride.
And yeah,
what a
I
journey.
love it. Like, it's still to this day, we spoke a little bit off camera. Like, I had bad food poisoning this morning. Like, I'm sorry, Tim, we'll put like a warning up for that bit, but like, yeah, I was wrecked. And now I'm like, oh, I'm coming back to life. Like, I'm having a chill conversation with Jonah, getting to know you. I think it's going to be so valuable for the audience, your journey as well, which is what I'm all about. It's just like, it's education. And I guess that's a good segue, as smoothly as I can put it anyway, where we start talking about open campus and we start talking about, okay, you found you were in the middle. That was like where you could provide the most value. It's like you understood the code inside, but you were never going to excel to the level of some of these other guys would. Or, you'd have to
work really, really hard.
Yeah. Like you were pushing against something there, whilst you were finding just immediate value from being in the middle of these two worlds, the coding world and the business world. Enter open campus after crypto.com, or is there any other journey in between first?
I mean, I actually spent while at crypto.com. I was there for roughly 4 years.
Oh,
So
wow. Yeah.
that entire last bull run,
Yeah.
I pretty much more or less spent at crypto.com. And then that actually taught me quite a lot about building products at scale.
Yeah.
Right. So really what that taught me was distribution is everything. And if you have a flywheel that works, so if you've actually designed a business model that has a sustainable flywheel, that distribution can be so powerful because every single cent that you spend on user acquisition, whatever it is, like even if you spend, like, I mean, people make fun of crypto.com for whatever spending, 200 million on the naming rights of the previously, FTX arena, RIP. But they had a flywheel that works.
Yeah.
They had a flywheel that works. It's, essentially every single dollar you spend on marketing gets turned into, user with, X amount of LTV, right? So that's lifetime value per user coming in, and we could see that very clearly on the product metrics. And really, the flywheel, thinking about flywheels then kind of became a really important part of the toolkit that I had, which I then kind of brought into Magic Eden. And the reason why I joined Magic Eden after crypto.com was because I learned how to scale products, and I learned how to scale financial products, more importantly, with crypto.com. But there was one very big missing part to crypto that I really wanted to chase, and that was the culture.
Yes.
Essentially, I was working for crypto.com was essentially a kind of fintech.
Yeah.
It was a neobank
Yeah.
running on crypto rails. So what was really missing there for me was that cultural aspect to Web3. And it was going on outside of the walled gardens of crypto.com. And it was comfortable inside the walled garden, right? I was having a good time. I was growing my team. I started off as the first PM, scaled the team to 300. Company was 3,000 people by the time I left. And I built so many amazing products, right? But there was just this kind of, amazing kind of, like whispers from across the wall that there's all this amazing stuff going on outside. And, NFTs were coming up at the time. We had the ETH NFTs with Bored Apes and all that crazy stuff going on with celebrities coming in at the time.
Crazy. Yeah.
That was a crazy, crazy time.
500,000 for a picture of a monkey, a JPEG of a monkey. Yeah.
Exactly. That really turned heads.
Yeah.
Right. And I really wanted to get a piece of that. I really wanted to understand it. How can a JPEG be valued at $500,000?
Yeah.
And how did they create this virality such that even all the celebrities were piling in?
Yeah. Justin Bieber. But I think the diversity of the celebrities really tickled me as well. You had sports guy, you had Steph Curry, you had Bieber, then you'd have Snoop Dogg. Like, these aren't people in the same room, to my knowledge. Yeah. And yet they're all coming into this. Maybe they are. Maybe they're all really close friends. Paris Hilton. Like, none of these dots are connected to me outside of the fact that they are perceived as basically the pinnacle of status.
Yes.
In every regard, right? But outside of that, basically nothing. So that fascinated me too. But anyway, continue.
Yeah, exactly. And that specifically was what got me thinking and my gears turning as a product guy. That clearly was a product.
Yes.
That met some kind of need, right? Whether it was vanity, whether it was like a flex, or whether it was the need to feel like you were a part of something bigger than yourself. There was something there that I wanted to crack. I wanted to understand it. And that was when I made the leap to join Magic Eden.
Cool. And Magic Eden being one of the largest marketplaces for all of these assets for someone outside of the space, right? So if you want to buy one of these JPEGs of a monkey for $500,000, you go to Magic Eden. That was at least one of the options that you would have, and there were many. And in terms of scale and size, really it was OpenSea and Magic Eden at the time, right?
That's
for that
correct.
whole run.
That's correct.
Okay, so again, I just think you have a really, really powerful true north. I think, talking about fintech, I can see how that basically becomes law again. It's the same thing where it's like you're seeing the future happen, but you're just putting the crypto into the same place, to access. You're putting those financial rails in place. And I think as it's all happening, that's true value. So as you're building these products for the first time, that's filling your cup. That's what drives you, is providing that value, and you're basically building this world around yourself at crypto.com. But then there seems to come a time where, okay, these rails are starting to get figured out, and now it's just about onboarding more cryptocurrencies, onboarding more users, and maybe that didn't have the same impact to you, or am I just projecting there?
I think you kind of hit the nail on the head.
Nice. Okay.
There's well done, Jack. There's a certain part of me that almost starts to feel uncomfortable when things get too comfortable.
Yes.
And I have a feeling like you're kind of the same.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And yeah, that was when my kind of spidey senses started going off, and everything was kind of going up and to the right, and this rocket ship was taking off, and we were getting tens of millions of users signing up, and the machine was working.
Yes.
The flywheels were spinning. Everything was going crazy off the charts, and the team was growing. The company was adding hundreds of people every month. And there was a part of me that felt, yeah, I want to get back into the building. I want to get back to that 0 to 1. And Magic Eden at the time was just starting out. They were this kind of no-name NFT marketplace on Solana, which at the time also was like kind of a no-name chain.
Yeah, they actually sort of mocked at the time. I remember there's a really big sort of morning show, we call them, in crypto, but outside of crypto, I'm trying to think of like a parallel to it. It's it's a YouTube show on that specific niche that happens every day, and people talk about what's developing in that industry. And the guys on that show, and it was basically the biggest one in NFTs at the time, alongside Rock Radio, they had one guy who was really into Magic Eden and Solana called Easy Eats. Or at least that's not his real name. He would be all about Solana NFTs, and these guys were all about Ethereum NFTs, and they would just mock him relentlessly about the value difference between these assets. You had Bored Ape Yacht Clubs at $500,000. I don't know at the time what a Solana NFT was worth, but I don't even think it was in the tens of thousands, even if it was in the thousands.
I mean, I think like the most expensive one at the time was, well, I mean, they kind of fluctuated, but I mean, D-Gods were the standout.
Yes.
OK Bears at the time, if you remember.
Yes, yeah, they rocketed, very quickly.
OK Bears were huge.
Yeah.
I think they went up all the way to like 200 Sol or something. I mean, granted, Sol at the time was, like $10-$20.
Yeah, but still, yeah. So thousands,
thousands at the time compared to hundreds of thousands.
Exactly, yeah. So yeah, I'm identical in this way. Like once I don't feel uncomfortable, I have something else in my mind that tells me everything that I have enjoyed in terms of success has come from that discomfort. And I've had that since I was a kid. Like I just had the right opportunities come. I was terrified of those opportunities, still took the leap. And now that sense of being nervous and maybe even terrified is a mechanism that I seek, as opposed to the opposite, which I think is still the case for a lot of people. Human beings naturally seek comfort in staying the same. And that can be really negative, but there's also positives to it. Back in the day, it meant you maybe didn't get eaten by a saber-tooth because you wanted to stay in your nice little hut, and the guys who went out and adventured maybe did. And they also changed the world and found the world. But yeah, still pretty dangerous for those guys. So Magic Eden, You're there from the inception. This NFT craze is really bubbling up, and again, for those less crypto familiar, Solana really starts to compete with Ethereum, but Magic Eden also starts to really compete as a marketplace. Crypto ordinals, are you still here for the Bitcoin side, or?
Oh no,
No.
I was no longer at Magic Eden when ordinals came up.
Yeah.
Which was, kind of sad, but the team did a really good job with the ordinals launch.
So then Animoca?
And then it was Animoca.
Okay.
I got my culture fix.
Yes.
I kind of rode that Solana boom
It was so cool. I was there.
with Magic Eden.
You're the underdogs again, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're the underdogs again, and like before we kind of move on to Animoca, just anecdotes from that time were just crazy. Like there's nothing like it. Even now, like I still don't think I have been able to feel that same adrenaline and the same rush as when you're trying to beat this big income. So Magic Eden was essentially this little minnow trying to take on this massive whale that was OpenSea. That was just seemingly just invincible. Like there was no way. They were well funded. They had hundreds of millions of funding. They were processing billions in volume, right, on ETH NFTs.
Yeah.
Solana was just like this little island next to this massive like behemoth.
Yeah. And that behemoth didn't even take notice of that island, didn't know it existed.
Didn't even know.
Time.
They didn't even know.
Yeah.
And I remember we would be on these weekly all hands meetings, and Jack, Magic Eden CEO, would be just like pumping his fists, yelling into the mic. And there was this one line that came from our CTO and founder Sid, and Sid would say, "We're gonna turn the sea purple. We're gonna turn the sea purple." Because Magic, for the audience, Magic Eden's colors are purple, right?
Yeah.
So, and that would just got everybody so pumped and so fired up, and really, like I think that really confirmed to me that Magic Eden was really just that was the place for me to get that cultural exposure and to get that kind of in the trenches experience that a lot of people really in the Web3 native side of things always say, right?
Yeah.
In the trenches. What does that even mean? And it's one of those kind of unteachable things. You kind of have to just go through it and experience it. And then you'll know, I'm in the trenches now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, that was an amazing time. And off the back of that was when I actually joined Animoca. And after all of that excitement, that adrenaline, Yat and a couple of senior leaders at Animoca, they came knocking on my door and they said, "Hey, we're doing this education project, Open Campus. We're about to launch on Binance. CZ and Heyi are, big supporters of education." It turns out, CZ's dad was actually a professor in China. So, a big part of his upbringing was kind of hanging around, professors and academia. And so, the two of them have always kind of recognized the importance of education. And I think Yat really kind of presented the vision for Open Campus and managed to secure a Binance Launchpad listing.
Wow.
And of course, like Binance Launchpad at the time, big deal.
Big deal. Yeah.
Big deal.
It was going to put you on the map. I'm trying to think of the equivalent for it's having one of the big banks come and support you, the big VCs, and say, we're going to make this IPO work.
It's like the equivalent of, getting listed on NASDAQ.
Yeah, exactly. But also with the support of basically everybody on launch day. I'm thinking almost Wolf of Wall Street. And they're just like, everyone needs to buy this stock. And it's like this whole big rally to say, this is the company you want to support. And this is going to make everybody a lot of money. But for you guys, there was a much more moral reason to do this because it's fixing education.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that was really what struck a chord with me.
Yeah.
Because if you think back to kind of my origin story into tech,
Yeah.
I had education to thank
Yeah.
for that. Without that coding boot camp, without that almost upskilling going on, I would have never had the confidence or conviction, right, to have
Absolutely.
made that jump into tech and then ultimately crypto. And now I'm far better off, both mentally, spiritually, and financially,
Awesome.
because I made my way, into tech. And really education was the gateway into that better outcome and that better future. And when I saw the opportunity to blend crypto and technology into an education use case to pretty much enable the same kind of access, right, to people around the world that I was fortunate enough to have been able to get, I leapt at that opportunity.
Yeah, I remind me to share a story with you off camera about my dad, and what he did in Liverpool when the government tried to close down the one school in a big catchment area where there was no other school.
Wow.
They took it over. They took over the school and basically taught for years unfunded, just so these kids could still get an education.
That's
Because
amazing.
the only other option was for these kids to, this is before public transport's even very good, was to like go to these other schools, and it was a pretty poor area where these kids weren't like, oh, I need to be educated. They were cool not going to school. So yeah, I'll have to share that whole story with you.
Amazing,
But it's funny that there has never not been an understanding in history of how important education is. I just feel that it hasn't been able to keep up with the pace of the way the world has evolved. Nobody, at least, UK, being a teacher isn't the best paying job in the world. You're not getting into that for purely money. Maybe for the holidays, good in the UK, you get to take the time off when the kids take the time off. But realistically, I think my experience, again, coming into like a pretty rough school upbringing, was you were always the guinea pigs. And, they were just trying to catch up with the evolution of the space. And there's always, you were being taught to essentially fit into this Victorian era of work, and like you were going to go become an accountant, you're going to become a lawyer, you're going to become somebody who serves a very specific role in society, and you're going to do that by being very smart at math or business or law. And you're also going to do that in a way where you're going to just work 80, 90 hours a week. And like, really, that's going to be your path to success. That's what success is in the UK. Tell me Open Campus's mission and, where you guys fit into this world of traditional education and how you differentiate from it.
So Open Campus is very near and dear to my heart because we're trying to do two things. We're trying to almost fit into the existing legacy system.
Yeah.
But the way that we're trying to, we're trying to fit into the legacy education system so that we have a shot at improving it.
Of course.
And it's one of those industries where you can't just go in there and disrupt everything.
Of course. Yeah.
It's not like AI or it's not like ChatGPT just comes onto the scene and breaks the internet and breaks everything that we knew about the world, right? And everybody has to like kind of pick up the pieces again and just go along with it.
Yeah.
Education is not one of those things. No. Education is probably the oldest, if not one of the oldest industries in the world. And you don't just take, a thousands, millennia old industry and just rip it apart.
Yeah.
That's not how you change things. And so I think in a nutshell, what we're building at Open Campus is, we're building an operating system for education in the 21st century and beyond. And what we're doing that through is blockchain technology and specifically verifiable credentials that live on chain. Now, the vision for Open Campus is very simple. We think there's an immense amount of value that's locked up right now in a student's academic history. Just think about it. Every single thing that you're doing as a student leading up until the point that you graduate and enter the workforce right now is locked up in either, at best, some database somewhere, maybe slightly better, it's maybe sitting on a cloud server somewhere, and maybe even better, right? In maybe more industrialized countries, right? It would be sitting on some national database somewhere, run by the government. As a student, that's actually value, right? If you think about it, because every single thing that you've done that led up to that point can and should count towards your reputation. And most students, as they leave their studies and enter the workforce, start with no credit, right? Like no job, no credit, no income. And as you and I both know, credit is so important to get someone up and running. That's leverage, right? And when leverage is used in the right way towards value accruing things for one's life, a lot of amazing things can happen. A lot of amazing outcomes can materialize as a result of that. And what we're trying to do at Open Campus is to take one's academic history and really turn that into something that service providers, lenders, creditors can use down the line, right? To get a sense of who you are before you get a job, before you have an income, right? Because why not? It's such a one-dimensional way of gauging someone's value solely based on how much money they earn.
Yes.
Right? And come on, guys, like we live in the modern day where everything is on the internet now, right? So why shouldn't that count towards who you are as a member of society? Now, education is so important in this area because the better you do at school means the more you care about who you are as a person. Then the more one cares about who they are means they probably end up contributing more to society because, you know, I mean, it sounds cliche, but you got to love yourself before you can, you know, love others, right? And I think that's very true in this sense. So if we can capture all of the academic credentials that one's earning throughout their academic studies, putting that on chain, and turning that into a quantifiable reputation score, that can actually then improve outcomes for students as they're applying for jobs, as they're buying their first car, maybe even, as they're taking out their student loans, right? That can all improve one's lives, right? Later on in their life. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think, look, it's trying to project potential, right? Like
Absolutely.
It's trying to just say, look, this person has a subset of experiences and a work ethic that we know through data and access that historically means they're going to be successful, or they're just going to not take out a credit card to not pay it back. You know, even something as simple as that. And I think another big issue, a big problem of the world right now is the fact that, you know, even properties are being bought by the same generation that bought properties 10, 15, 20 years ago in most of the Western world, at least. You know, in the US, the age of home buyers has gone up dramatically, but the year they were born haven't. So the person who bought a home, their first home, when they were 30, is now buying their second or third home in the 60s, whilst the 30-year-olds, they're just not buying properties anymore. They don't have access. So I think we need a solution to that, because that's not, you know, that's not a succeeding society. That's not a flywheel society based on, like, you know,
It's not.
If all of a sudden this one generation is buying everything and everything underneath it can't, that's a collapse in society to me. Like
And you're seeing that problem right now.
we're literally seeing it, and
Yeah.
I can see why that would start from education, at least in the sense of telling me who that person is, because what other evidence data would you have from somebody who hopefully has, went into education from a young age and is now coming out of college? That's it. That's who they are. So yeah, I love this product. Obviously, we've got to speak at length about this before. I love the idea of solving for some of these issues. Before we close out, are there any case studies or examples? I know you're working in Vietnam right now that you feel would be relevant for a newer audience in terms of wrapping their mind about like the on the ground work that Open Campus do, and then we'll give a little soundbite to like where they can find out more if they're interested.
Absolutely. So, yeah, how do we translate that really lofty vision of turning every student's academic history into one quantifiable score that then unlocks benefits downstream, right? That and later on in a graduate's life, that's essentially what we're building right now. Now, it takes time, and it's not going to happen overnight. So what we've done to really like take actionable steps to achieving that kind of ultimate end goal is we're going into very specific markets right now where governments are open-minded to solutions like this and are looking for innovation in these areas. So Vietnam is a really, really good example of where that's actually true. So in Vietnam, we've actually now started to work with the Ministry of Education through our partner Luvia on the ground.
Wow.
Luvia is actually a test prep application, right? So you can just download on iOS, Android, and you'll be able to get access to tens of thousands of exam questions that help students basically practice for their exams. And really, what's great about what we're doing in Vietnam is that we're getting access to one of the world's most young and upcoming populations out there, right? These people are like, people in Vietnam are young, they're hungry, and they're very open-minded to trying new solutions, including blockchain technology. And what we're now doing is we're now onboarding these students that we're acquiring through Luvia to actually help them get better jobs. Now, really the idea for us in Vietnam is to build out a complete value chain, right? So everything from onboarding the student, capturing their academic credentials through platforms like Luvia, to then building out almost like a digital passport, like a student passport, nice, containing all of these credentials, and then taking that and essentially funneling that into almost like a little job board, right, for these students. And that's a complete solution, right, where you go from learning, upskilling, to codifying and quantifying your credentials, to then ultimately translating your academic performance into real outcomes through being able to apply for real jobs by working with real recruiters locally in Vietnam. Now, for me, I think, again, that kind of goes back to value, yes, right? What's the value that we're bringing here? And I think in that value chain, it's really clear what we're bringing to the table for Absolutely. These students. And if we kind of take a step back and zoom out and look at where Vietnam is as a market, it's an extremely fragmented market. Mm-hmm. Students are extremely underserved. And there's maybe, different service providers and different offerings here and there, but there really isn't one place where students can get access to all of this in a way that's tailored to them and their needs, right? And that's what we're building. I think I'll just close off Vietnam by saying, really, we're in a very interesting time for Vietnam as a country, because we're entering a stage in Vietnam's economic development where the government there actually knows that they need to get rich before they get old. And Thailand essentially went through this over the last 10, 15 years, where everybody thought they were going to be the next big growth story in Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
And they were to an extent. But I think the expectations were here in terms of where their growth would be, but they kind of ended up here. And I think for a lot of people that were watching this, you know, it came as a bit of a disappointment. And I think there's a lot for Vietnam to learn there in terms of how to actually propel their economy to grow in such a way so that they're actually maximizing their potential growth. And so the government there has actually set a very ambitious mandate, right, to grow the economy by 70% in the next 5 to 10 years. In the West, that's unheard of, right?
Yeah.
Because most countries now have kind of reached that kind of ceiling, right? And you've plateaued. You're getting maybe low single digit growth, right?
Yeah.
Now we're talking 7 to 10% growth over the next 10 years.
Yeah.
So that presents an immense opportunity for us because every single student that we're now onboarding is going to be a part of that growth story.
Yes.
If they grow, we grow. And I think that's what makes Vietnam so interesting for us because I think we're on the cusp of one of the most epic and most exciting growth stories to come out of Southeast Asia this decade. And, you know, we're sitting right in the middle of it through education.
Yeah, it's almost the infrastructure layer, right? Like that foundation of you will not get that success if the people don't have the aptitude for it. That's fundamental. There's no place or time in history where success has been built by a government without its people. It doesn't work like that. You have to have that intelligence and that aptitude with you to help you build that world. It's symbiotic. And yeah, I love this idea of, you know, working more closely with those governments and with those education partners to sort of help build that foundation in a world where we now have AI and data and we can actually track that success. We can track that flywheel of like education, quality, success in education, success outside of education, success for the country itself. I think that is really, really interesting, really, really cool. If people have enjoyed this conversation and they want to find a little bit more about you and about Open Campus, where do they go?
Yeah, you can follow me on X. I'm Jonah Lau _ So JONAHLAU _ So I tweet daily. Yeah, you'll see me ramble and my random musings there. For Open Campus, check out opencampus.xyz. I think you're going to find a lot of information there about what we're building, the products that we're building, the markets that we're in, and also, of course, you know, the core technology that powers all of this.
Awesome. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us today. Jonah, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
It's been dope hearing that origin story. It's not one I've heard before. So thank you so much. And yeah, we'll sure we'll have to do a second on this. And
Definitely a part 2.
Absolutely. Maybe a series.
Yeah.
We'll see. Dude, thank you so much.
Thank you.